We are back on What the Funk, this time with another college friend, Dan the Man, Danny Bones, the father of Lucky Locke, Dan Locke, one of my very best friends, one of my favorite people in the world, somebody who helped me get Funk Futures off the ground, a business partner of mine in Give.co, which has the potential to be one of the most philanthropic companies ever created. You live in Miami now. Dan, really appreciate you coming on the pod today, man. You've been here for a lot of things in my life, and this is a fun one to share with you. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, brother. You are a brother to me, and this is pretty surreal. I've never been on a podcast, and I know you've been doing this for a long time and been very successful with it. And you've always been an entertainer, but it almost feels like it is live, but I know it's not.
Well,
I mean,
live
we're
enough. Yeah, we're live enough. This probably won't be edited unless we do something really crazy. Recant too many of our stories from the college days. But to go back, right? We met the first day of college. I mean, technically, before we were even in classes, we were freshmen. This would have been August of 1998. To date ourselves, I was on the 6th floor in the dorm. You were on the 5th floor. And we were put in this small aid group together and realized we were buddies. You had a Sox hat on. I was probably wearing a gold chain and earrings. And we had a blast. We were both looking to have a good time and immediately hit it off. We're roommates for a couple of years in college. Good times, man. Good times.
I believe I actually heard about you before we met in that aid group because of a disturbance you may have made on the 6th floor.
Oh, yeah. Really?
No.
Well, good. That's
Possibly.
a
It's
good thing.
possible, but my memory is fading as we get into our mid-40s.
It's crazy. Yeah, it is wild to think like at this point now we've known each other for a lot longer than we haven't known each other. But
That is true, yeah.
I'll of course pose the question to you. I'd love to see how you answer this question that I ask to everybody who comes on my podcast. And you know this because you've listened a few times is who are you? Who is Dan Locke?
Who am I or who do I wish I was?
You can answer the second part later, but I want to go back first.
First and foremost, I am a lover.
Nice.
I love people. I have realized that actually a lot lately since I've moved to Miami without really knowing many people, is that I draw upon other people. It keeps my spirits up.
Yeah.
I really enjoy being around other people and making people laugh. I'm a dog owner. I have a mini Dachshund named Lucky. I'm a son, a brother, a friend, and entrepreneur. And I think that kind of summarizes it. I'm a Jew.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Not just
I'm
a, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Not just a lover of people and things, a lover of pizza. Maybe to the level of nobody who I've ever met before. Pepperoni pizza guy.
Actually, that was like high on my list, and it could have been close to the top. I'm actually trying a place this Friday. No, that's Sunday. That's only a pop up in Miami. That's supposed to be incredible.
You'll be the judge of that. But definitely
Fratelli's.
you're one of the people that I view their opinion very highly as it relates to pizza. Like if I travel to a place, you're going to know where the good pizza is. And I generally do agree with your assessment of pizza. So we got that going aside from being
I
best
appreciate
friends.
that. It's one thing that I'm extremely confident about.
Well, I mean, El Prez over at Barstool Sports turned it into a whole persona, into a whole business persona. Anyhow, so in addition to being a lover, being a Jew, being a bright guy, being valedictorian in high school, talk about where you grew up. Kind of what motivated you as a young man, how you ended up at Brandeis, and then we'll get into some career stuff too.
Oh, I grew up in Revere, Massachusetts. Worked at Kelly's Roast Beef in high school. Gotta mix that tartar with your rhymes, kid. Um, so your question is what motivated me to to get where I'm at now?
Like when you were a kid, you know what I mean? Like what were you into? Were you a computers kid? Were you into
Oh,
sports? How'd you end up at Brandeis? All that stuff.
oh, I was just very driven to be top of the class, probably because my sister was, and got a lot of pressure from my parents, and uh, always enjoyed being academic. I didn't get into the schools that I wanted to, and I got a scholarship to Brandeis and met amazing lifelong friends, like, and such a great memories from our time there. Uh, and but was never really that great at making quick decisions. So by the time I was a junior, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. Started off as a physics major, and then a computer science, then economics, and I wound up majoring in psychology and minoring in
Mm.
economics. But after college, you and I worked at Bison County together
Oh, love those
as
days.
waiters and bartenders, and um, just was trying to figure myself out. Decided to apply to business school and got into a dual degree program at Boston University, doing an MBA and a Master of Science, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think I was a little depressed around that time, and I went on a trip to Israel
Mm.
and kind of started figuring things out. And then I realized that what truly made me happy was traveling. And I found a job as an analyst working for Pyramid Research, conducting uh, reports and insights in the telecom and media space. And I got to travel to China, Portugal, France, the UK, just giving presentations on really nerdy stuff in the mobile broadband space.
China.
Um, yeah.
I had Trisha Curtis. She, you're like a little bit of a closet nerd. It's tough for me to call you that because I know that like you have real nerdy tendencies, but you're also really cool. You've been a popular guy. So I don't like put you in the nerd bucket, but I think you are like a proud self-proclaimed nerd. I had a woman yesterday named Trisha Curtis on the podcast who her whole company, her whole persona is petro nerds, right? So she's like the oil and gas nerd. She's an incredible
Oh, I've
analyst
seen
and
that.
yeah, economics person. She's like brilliant, but she talked a bunch about China yesterday and sort of how it has impacted the global economy, especially the global energy economy. I thought it was really fascinating. I think you'll enjoy that one. I think our listeners will too.
Oh, I've
Um,
got some really funny stories about being in China.
I remember when you went over there. You were like you've always been a little bit of a nomad. In fact, when you were at my daughter's bat mitzvah last year, shout out Julia Funk, she crushed it. You were referring to yourself as a digital nomad to people that you met, and I hadn't heard that phrase, but I'm like, not only are you a nomad, you are kind of a digital nomad, but you're like kind of one of the most nomadic of my friends. Traveling is something that gives you energy, and now if I count, you moved to uh, you moved to Santa Barbara, you moved to Austin, Texas, and now you've moved to Miami without really knowing a lot of people in any of those places, right? So you're not afraid to go and branch out and like find new groups of friends and explore new places.
Well, interesting
Yeah,
fact about that, my friend. When I was about 30 years old, I got an offer to Big Commerce when I was working at Constant Contact,
yes,
and I didn't want to move out of Boston. And you were actually somebody that told me, because you had already moved to Colorado years before,
yeah.
and I saw what a change that had on you and how ballsy it was at the time for what you were going through. And you were very adamant, like you should definitely try another place. And I had always been a traveler, but it was the moving part, and it was one of the best decisions in my life.
Well, I thank you, and I had a feeling you were going to give me some credit for that, of which I deserve very little. But I will say this: like my general approach to a lot of things in life is like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And I even remember where I was sitting when we had this conversation. It must have been 2009, maybe 2010, and we're having a conversation, and I do remember you had some trepidation about it. The offer was nice. Like they really wanted you. It was somebody that you knew that really wanted to bring you down there and make you like an important person, make you a real weapon at an e-commerce company at a time when e-commerce was really growing. And I
Well, it
just
was, you know
remember,
what? It's a real lesson in saying no to an offer when you really mean it. Like I kept saying no because I didn't want the job and they just kept sweetening it, but I was really like, there's no way. And then
yeah,
they actually made it good enough, I guess.
I'm sure going down there helped too, because being 30
Yeah.
and single
Oh,
and social to Austin, Texas in
yeah.
2009 was a ton of fun for you. But I just remember saying like, well, but like, say it doesn't work, like you just moved back to Boston a year later and you're no worse for the wear, right? And it's sort of the same thing
Well,
I
it
look
wasn't
at
even
with
that. They
business
offered me free housing. So I
and
was
a
like,
car stipend and
yeah.
cell phone and your first place
And
down
I'm
there
not
was
I'm not
really
trying
cool.
to sound like I'm bragging. I was like blown away. I couldn't believe that was happening to me. To be honest, I was like, whoa. I mean, it partly was because a mentor of mine was my boss, and he was the one who recruited me. But and unfortunately, he passed away 3
Yeah.
months after I got there.
Larry,
Suddenly,
rest in
yeah,
peace. Rest in peace to Larry. I
Larry
do
Truman.
remember that loss happening, and he was somebody that I met when you were at Constant Contact and coming out here. I think that you have the crown for any of my friends or family. It's close with family in terms of who's visited Colorado the most, which just speaks to you, right? You value relationships. You also value travel. Like, how many times do you think you've been out here? Like 40 times?
Um, so when did you move there? Just some back of the
2003.
envelope math.
2003.
2003. So there was a few years there when I was working for Constant Contact where I was coming there every 6 weeks.
I remember that. You were going to like Fort Collins, Loveland.
Yeah, Loveland. Yeah.
Yeah, which you'd be amazed. I'm not sure when the last time you went out there is, but it's really grown. Like Colorado as a whole, almost that whole stretch from like Fort Collins all the way to Colorado Springs is like filled in. There weren't like a ton of hotels when you were staying there, weren't a ton of bars and restaurants. Now there's like lots. You know, people have figured out how great it is here. So I want to go back to your kind of early career and pyramid research. And I remember thinking this was a really good fit for you because you actually were an analyst. You were on the news. You were like the first friend of mine who was like on TV on like CNBC and things like that. And
That
you
was also
really
something totally lucky. What happened was my boss had me write this really esoteric report about the cost of wireless airwaves. Governments auction off airwaves
mm,
to telecom companies like Verizon, AT&T for billions of dollars. They auction off spectrum. And I wrote a report that like no one because he told me to. I wrote a report about the cost of the airwaves and how it differs by country.
mm,
And I very quickly got invited to speak at conferences and stuff in France and um, in China and Portugal. And it's just because my boss, Guy Zeeby, he just was like, this is what you're going to write about. I really had no idea what I was doing. And the day that I got called to be on Bloomberg TV to speak about the Virgin Mobile IPO,
mm.
he just didn't want to go. He was like really shy. He
You
gave me
do it.
his sports jacket. He was like, "Go wear this," and they did. I looking back, like they didn't prep me at all. I watched the video. I'd say like a bunch of times,
Yeah.
totally nervous, but what an experience.
Good good for you though. Like it's important to cut your teeth and get outside of your comfort zone. I don't know where your comfort zone actually ends and your discomfort begins. I'm not sure we've totally found that. Uh, Given the fact that you love doing karaoke, you're not afraid to speak in front of large groups of people and just sort of get yourself into a place where you can make people smile and laugh, which when I was your best man, um, for your wedding in 2017, that was one of the things that I talked about is when you're around, you make things more fun. And it's something that I think I and a lot of people do appreciate about you is you are the human icebreaker, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate that because I'm starting to use the term icebreaker in our messaging for Give.
Yes, yes. You want to talk about Give now?
Sure. So, Give is a company that you and I started together. It was your idea. We originally started calling it Give to Meet, and then
That's right.
luckily found the give.co domain, which I think we bought it for a bargain,
Yeah.
$1,300. And so Give is a platform that creates and fosters positive relationships between people who are booking meetings with each other. And it does that by demonstrating support for nonprofits and noble causes that are important for changing the world in a positive way.
I that's one way to put it. From my sales brain goes to it's a tool that can be leveraged to create more authentic meetings and for you to secure more meetings as a salesperson. But I think that there's a lot of different facets to the application. The the concept of bringing philanthropy into business, like what about that has interested you to this point? Is it metrics driven? Is it part of your sort of humanitarian view on things? Like where does that motivation come from? Because I can tell you from my seat, um, I think that bringing any level of human connection and authenticity into business is important. I think that's how, as a salesperson, you're able to make longer lasting relationships and clients. And I think being charitable, being philanthropic, will help in fostering those relationships. Where is this motivation lying for you to bring philanthropy more into the business world?
So we'll go full circle on the conversation. It's about connecting with people, but good people. So I find that good people have a better sense of humor for the most part. And it's been just really fun, especially lately, connecting with people that work in nonprofits or at this cross section of being publicly and privately focused on doing good, but also being a capitalist and making money, like at the
Yeah.
same time. Uh, those people I notice are more fun to be around. They're happier. They have cooler stories. They're just funnier. And that's a big motivation for building this company, actually, for me on a personal level, because I thrive off of those kinds of relationships. But, there's a real problem in our world today with the way that people connect that in some cases, especially in the sales world, is getting worse because of AI and automation. People
Mm.
know that 900 out of 901 emails they get are potentially generated by a
By a bot.
non-human.
Yeah.
So, what I think you're the master at, and I look up to you on this is relationship building in general because you really care. And that's what Give is meant to do, is show that you care about something. Usually when people research or sorry, when people receive a solicitation for a product, they don't research the salesperson. They don't
Right.
necessarily trust that person. They might have a neutral opinion, sometimes positive if it's good timing and it's a product that they really need at that moment. But what do you know about that person? So what Give does is it teaches whoever you're trying to connect with booking a meeting that you're real, that you care about a cause. And what that does is, going back to Brandeis undergrad psychology, it builds relationships before you even could get on the phone with somebody.
Yeah.
is if you have a mutual interest and you've expressed how you feel about that cause and someone else feels the same way, they want to work with you a little bit more. And it doesn't even matter if it's the tiny, tiny bit. It's, marketing and advertising is all about brand impressions, and the number of positive impressions you receive of a person or brand contributes to your to purchase behavior.
Fascinating. And thank you, of course, for the kind words. I would also say, um, in some of my early conversations when you and I were kicking around the idea of building Give and making this sort of a real company and product, I talked to some decision makers in my network, whether it be CFOs, VPs of IT, operations leads, people that I do business with. And, you know, one of the things that they said is, I get hit up by 80 salespeople a day. No joke, right? And I take yours because I know you, I like you, I trust you. We've built that relationship. But that's happened over time, right? Like, what if you haven't had the opportunity to build that relationship with someone? How can you differentiate yourself? And that's really where Give is meaningful to me, in that you can find a way to create a little bit of a personal connection, or at least show that you are not a robot and you're a real person and you're willing to make a donation to a charity or a cause that they care about, just to get a little bit of time on their calendar, right? You've seen this with me too, Dan. Like, you and I get on calls with potential business partners or advisors or users of Give, and like, I'm fine to not talk about business the whole time. Like, generally speaking, like, that's sort of how I default to, and how I like to operate, because I think there'll always be a time and place for that. But connecting as humans, to me, is the most important thing, and it's part of the reason why people will can come back at some point and do business with you and speak highly of you when they talk to other people. So Give is a product for salespeople. Who else?
So Give theoretically could be used by anybody who wants a meeting with somebody else. So in business, there are 1 billion meetings a year conducted by US employees alone. So the US is like 350 million people. It's 5-6% of the world. And there's a billion in the United States alone. So every time a meeting is scheduled, there's an opportunity to use Give. The leading calendar scheduling applications are Calendly,
Yeah.
uh, used by businesses are Calendly, HubSpot Scheduler, Chili Piper. I'm still learning about that. Our goal is to be calendar agnostic, like we're nonprofit agnostic. But there are 20 million people who use Calendly, for example.
Hmm.
And they're not just businesses. They're people that want a scheduling link to be included in their signature, or they just want to make it really seamless to offer somebody their link so they can book a meeting. And that's what we do. I mean, at its core, it's about booking meetings, but we've got products for three different types of users. One could be a product for employee culture. So
Mm.
you can simply demonstrate that you care for a cause whenever you schedule a meeting. Your scheduling page has real estate on it, and there's a nonprofit that can appear on the side, and you can just simply show that you care as almost like a social media scheduling tool. Um, and that's about demonstrating support. Our product for salespeople is meant to be used as incentive based cause marketing, where you're offering a donation instead of a gift or a dinner or a lunch or a coffee or a gift card. It fits into corporate gift giving, which is a
Mm.
$350 million industry. And it can be used for customer appreciation or employee appreciation, but it happens at the same time that a meeting is scheduled and when it's completed. So that's the second product. The third is requesting a donation, and that's for anybody that wants to raise money at any time. if you're getting a lot of solicitations on LinkedIn and there's a crisis or an earthquake happening, you can use your Give link to essentially volunteer at a rate that produces value. So instead of volunteering at the food bank and sorting food, which is an opportunity cost of about 15 to $20 an hour, you can offer your time in a video call with somebody for whatever your consulting rate is, where it's all going to that food bank. And now the food bank can hire 20 to 30 people. And look at the amount of value you can create by using that product. And I'd say, lastly, we're making the product so that you don't have to make a donation. You can just show support, but both users will be able to choose charities where they can fundraise at the same time, which is meant to do what is meant to do, which is to bring people together.
To bring people together and connect over something beyond just a business transaction, right?
Right.
What
And I think
what
we've
non
talked about this.
yeah,
We both have had experiences volunteering or doing something a little outside of work with work people. And that's where we became friends with them. Right. And
right.
maybe a social event or an event where you're doing something together is when relationships got strengthened. And
Yeah,
that's what Give does.
yeah, I think also just in terms of like gratitude, right, and giving back. I think one of the things that I've really focused on, especially over the past like 3 or 4 years, is having and expressing gratitude. Um, and you could probably say maybe I'm a little bit soft, a bit of a softie because of that. But I think that when I find myself, and it even happened this week, in a tough spot, I've had a tough week in business this week. It's been a weird time. I think the election has something to do with that, for the record, not to mention we just had this whole assassination attempt. There's uncertainty with the current administration. It's hard to like really have confidence, I
Uncertainty.
think. Uncertainty. It's hard to have a lot of
Mhm.
confidence right now in where things are, and uncertainty on where things are headed. But I was in a tough spot, so I decided to reach out to a few people and just say, I'm in a tough spot, and I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you being there for me. And I think just the act of doing that alone kind of brought me
I
up.
didn't get one of those.
I send you stuff like that all the time, okay? This was for other people.
You could tell me right now. Just
I
kidding.
appreciate you, Dan. I do. But I think it's like who it was, whoever was at the top of my phone at the time. All right. You weren't texting me enough. So that's probably, maybe if you showed more gratitude and texted me more, that's fine. No, but seriously, and I think that helped bring me back up, like to a more solid baseline. And some people even responded back like, hey, you always show a lot of gratitude. I appreciate that. And I think Give fundamentally will just make people express more gratitude and maybe make them feel a certain way, because all of my business meetings feel one type of way. I'd like for them to feel a little bit more authentic and stronger, and continue to foster through philanthropy, philantech, and giving. As far as you personally, what are some of your like most meaningful nonprofits, groups, that charities that mean something to you, and why?
So my mother had breast cancer last year, and she was treated at Dana Farber. I didn't know very much about breast cancer. Men can also get breast cancer. I learned recently, and luckily for my mom, she had. I mean, unlucky but also lucky. She's cancer free because she had a mastectomy on one of her breasts,
Nice.
but she still faces risks, and it's been very hard on her uh, mentally, uh, and as it has on all of us. And that's definitely a cause that I'm supporting. And Dana Farber was a place that treated her immensely well. And other causes that I've been learning about recently, kindness.org, for example.
Hmm.
Building this company it's really eye opening. There's 1.6 million charities in the United States. There's about $500 billion donated to them every year, and less than around 6% is donated by corporations. And what I'm learning is a lot of those donations are actually for services. Some nonprofits provide services to those corporations, some are corporate foundations, but a lot of businesses don't realize they can use sales and marketing dollars on donations to get
Mm.
meetings. I'm not trying to bring it back to what Give does,
No, no, no. I
but
think that hold on, just to jump in. I think that that's actually pretty meaningful because every company has some sort of sales and marketing or sponsorship or events budget, right? And I think that the way that companies think about this fundamentally is that's going to be for dinners, for lunches, for coffees, for airport travel, things like that. And what you're saying, based on the research that you've done, is you could actually leverage making donations and use that and carve out some of your sales and marketing budget because those donations will end up in creating more business, right?
mhm. Yeah, so thanks to you, I started a fractional CFO business, and Funk Futures was my first client.
It's true.
Uh, I did extensive research on this and looked into like the IRS code, and it's like a lot of businesses don't realize or don't even think to use donations in this way for some reason, and it's just another way of sort of offering a gift, but it's not. There's no transfer of value between one person and another. So it's truly an altruistic way to do business. You know, think of going to CVS and they ask you to round up every time you make a purchase. Well, imagine a
Yeah.
world where every meeting that gets scheduled has a donation that's attached to it.
And I think that's ultimately our goal, right? Is if we could bring donations into as many business meetings as possible, into every business meeting, the world would truly be a better place. Like, I think that's sort of what it comes down to, breaks down to, and that more authentic connection will be made. But the biggest challenge, as I see it, is still change, right? And even this is something that you've gotten on me about before too, with here I am running Funk Futures, and we're bringing new technologies, companies that we work with to market. And meanwhile, I'm resistant to change sometimes when it comes to leveraging technologies that I'm comfortable with and that I've used for many, many
Oh
years.
yeah, we got to talk off the podcast.
It's a but I think that I'm emblematic or representative, Dan, of a lot of people in that regard. You've developed some level of comfort. I started using Salesforce in 2003, and I've used it for the majority of my career. I'm sure there's other great CRM tools. I want to use Salesforce, right? So I think the way that this has to happen is it's more a change of thinking than it is a change in terms of technology adoption, and we'll see how that sort of all plays out. So with Give, final question about Give, and then we're going to move into some more fun stuff.
Okay.
Is who gets the benefit of giving a donation? So I am using Give, and I use my Give link, and I propose to you that I'll make a $150 donation to the Susan G. Komen Foundation or something like that for breast cancer for
Hmm.
30 minutes of your time, right? And that meeting ends up happening. I submit the donation. Do I get the tax benefit? Does my company get the tax benefit? Do you like what does that workflow look like? Who gets the
Okay, so
benefit
the
of the
easy
donation?
answer is it's always whoever makes the payment. So you can't
Okay.
take a write off because you chose a nonprofit. So people get to choose which nonprofits the donations go to on Give. If you're choosing, you don't get any benefit other than you get to feel good, which is a great benefit, and it's your cause that you care for. But it's always whoever is writing the check, making the payment using the credit card.
Could be company, could be individual.
Could be company, could be individual. We're targeting companies, but at the end of the day, it's whoever wants the meeting is making a donation.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. I mean, obviously, I'm one of the founders of the company, but I think the concept is, I think it's still early in its evolution, Dan. Like, I think that it's a change of thinking as much as anything. But I do think that social impact is becoming more and more of a thing, and the world keeps getting smaller. We're all more connected digitally, so this can happen both for a web meeting as well as in person, right? Where people can leverage Give to make a donation, and everybody feels good about what happens. Want to
Well,
talk to you a little. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Oh, I was
No,
just
no, no.
saying we're following a playbook from the Cold Start Problem. So, the Cold Start Problem is a book by Andrew Chen. He was one of the early employees at Uber. He became a rock star VC at Andreessen Horowitz, and the book takes a look at and provides case studies on Uber, Tinder, Slack, Facebook, Instagram, Dropbox, LinkedIn, Zoom, PayPal, and what these companies did to go viral. So a viral coefficient is a metric that companies look at to see how quickly users are joining the platform. And it starts with word of mouth. So if you can get every person you tell about your concept to tell at least one other person, it creates compounding effects. That is what creates virality. And there are a bunch of methods these companies used using the word free, referral programs, sharing incentives, influencers, exclusivity. Exclusivity is huge. The way Facebook started by only allowing users to come from Harvard and then
And just
Stanford,
colleges. Yeah.
but it creates this FOMO effect that is, you know, very much just related to crowd behavior.
It's fascinating. Yeah, and I know you're a big reader, probably more so than me, but this is proven, right? It's worked before, and I think there's a number of cases. LinkedIn is one as well that a lot of people have referred to. I remember when somebody told me about it. It was actually a boss that I couldn't stand. She was the worst,
So
super
the LinkedIn is a
crazy. But
great example of come for the utility, stay for the network. So you have acquisition and then you have retention. And people may not remember, but when LinkedIn started, it was a place just for jobs for the most part. And it was the
huh.
first place to post your business identity online.
And Facebook is where you put your personal identity online,
Right.
right? And Instagram is
Right.
where you put your photogenic identity
Yes.
online. And Give, in theory, should be where you put your philanthropic, your charitable identity online.
Exactly. And if you look at Instagram, it's a great example too of that because Instagram didn't start with a news feed or a feed. So they brought users in because they had the coolest and most innovative picture taking tool.
Yeah.
Remember when Instagram first started, everyone was using these like a lot of filters to start,
Yeah.
and they got a ton of users from that, but it wasn't until they opened the feed that they made it social, and that's what brought people together through connection. And that's where they got their viral coefficient above 1.
You and I were together when you signed up for Instagram. We were in the back of a taxi. This is before
Really?
Uber, going from El Dorado Springs to downtown Boulder,
Oh,
to hit up Pearl Street. I think there were some NCAA basketball games. This must have been 2010, and I just remember you downloading it, and you looked at me and you go, "This is an incredible app." Because at that point, like there weren't a ton of like amazing apps, honestly. And I remember you kind of going through it. You're like, this thing's gonna stick, and they sold pretty quickly. That was an incredible buy by Facebook, of course. But I just remember you saying that, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. Right, like it's gonna kill cameras and camera shops potentially, but man, this is pretty slick. I want to talk about your entrepreneurial spirit because I think that you've always had this. I mean, even going back to college days, but you were one of like my first friends to really go out and venture out, and it was through pizza, right? Where you saw a concept and really went for it. So talk about like your entrepreneurial spirit and your love of pizza and how sort of that got things started for you from an entrepreneurial perspective, and then where has it led to this point?
Well, I would say it started just in my upbringing. My dad and my grandfather had a plumbing business called Locke Mechanical, and then they went into real estate together. But my grandfather worked until he couldn't anymore. He was like 90 years old when he
Wow.
died, and he was still trying to like plumb, I guess it's be a plumber. And so I had a paper route when I was like 10 or 11, but I started working in food in high school at Kelly's Roast Beef with uh, a lot of my friends from Revere, and $7 an hour was 10-hour shifts
It's actually not
over the
that
summer.
bad.
Yeah, and remember the price of a small roast beef was 450 plus tax,
What is it now?
and it's probably over 10, $11 at least.
Wow.
Uh, but anyways, the I liked food, and we were close with Adam Berman freshman year. He and I both liked cooking, and we both got jobs together at the Stein, a restaurant on campus at Brandeis, making $8 an hour. And then you told us about Bison County, and you were making $30 an hour, and I was like, no way, that's possible. And next thing I knew, I was paying John Rapp to make my bed because I was like, whoa, how much money we were making. And I don't know, years later, I went into the pizza business with another Brandeis guy, Joe Baumel, who had just graduated from culinary school and had connected with a world famous pizza chef. I was living in Austin rent free at the time and saving a lot of money, and decided to become an investor in pizza company in Santa Barbara. Then had to move out there because the two of them were chefs or are chefs and didn't know anything about business because we had started franchising to other people. So I
Mm,
moved to Santa Barbara from Austin. We grew Persona Pizzeria to 7 locations in
nice.
California, Texas, Chicago, and then merged with another brand called Forenza Pizza. And together we opened 35 restaurants in the states I mentioned, and then in Idaho, South Carolina, Virginia, and a couple other states. North Carolina, there were a few locations.
So the
And
concept, real quick, was it was like Chipotle for pizza, right? Like very very fast. You look at the line, you pick certain items, it goes in the 800-degree oven, and your pizza's out right away. So getting rid of that, like reheating the pizza slice, you actually get something fresh. Mod Pizza is here. I feel like that's like the only one now. So has the that
no,
industry just really
well, they just
consolidated?
filed for bankruptcy. So in
Really?
2012, there was like 15 different concepts. It was like the pizza gold rush,
Yeah.
sort of like. And this, I learned this at Pyramid Research studying telecom. Anytime there's a new concept, even within an existing industry, there's generally a hysteria and a rush into that market by people that are excited about it. And inevitably, there's a lot of consolidation. So, of the
Right.
15 or so brands that came out around 2010 to 2014, there's very few left in that space because they were all kind of copying each other. We had amazing pizza, our marketing wasn't that great, and
Pizza
we
was
didn't have
good.
a
Pizza
ton
was
of
good.
funding. But the pizza was the best pizza I've ever had. And you know how critical I am. And ultimately it came down to a metric, revenue per square foot. It's hard to sell enough. People don't eat pizza 7 days a week like they do sandwiches,
Sure.
right? So the pizza models that have succeeded, Domino's, they say, is a technology company now, but it's a big part of it is because small footprint. They have a
Yeah.
very small. Their rent is low, And the margins in pizza aren't as good as people think once you add labor and rent and other costs besides the food cost.
Yeah, I mean that actually is a really good point, and I would say Domino's, which is a brand that like I feel like we ordered a bunch of in college and then completely disappeared from my life for many years, has really come back now because if you go on that app, not only does it like tell you exactly how long it's going to be before somebody gets there, same like Uber Eats, DoorDash type concept, but there's always deals. It's always like buy one medium, get one medium for
Mhm.
free. And I got to feed 5 people here. And my daughters are now 12 and 14. They eat just as much as we do. Right. So they're like, we got to get like a bunch of pizzas. If I'm going to go to a local place, which I'd love to do, it's going to be like $60. If I go to Domino's, it's going to be half of that, right? So the quality is just good enough that it makes sense. But what percentage of the time do we actually go into Domino's versus order? Like
Well, the
5%?
fascinating thing I learned about pizza from a business perspective is the average consumer doesn't really care about a pizza that's going like on a scale from 1 to 10. They don't make their decision that much because a pizza is an 8.5 versus a
Really?
6.5.
That's
So
cool.
Blaze Pizza is the biggest in that Chipotle for pizza space. Why? Marketing. They have
Mm,
LeBron James as an investor. Their
right.
marketing says stuff like take a risk. It has nothing to do with pizza. We were trying to be like high quality and talk about the ingredients. Not enough people care about that. So you have to think about your marketing funnel, right? Like what percentage of people like pizza? Probably 90%. And
Sure.
then as you go down that funnel, what percentage actually go out of their way to go eat an 8 or 9 out of 10 all the time? It's really, it's very much a product that has a lot of substitutes.
Yeah, I mean it that makes sense. And you guys did, I remember early on it was we have double zero flour and tomatoes that were picked at the base of Mount Vesuvius and fresh local mozzarella cheese. And that means something to me. In fact, I learned a lot from you in that process. So I do look for those things. And once you do, then I think you become more of a pizza snob. So you finish up your time in Santa Barbara. You guys kind of successfully were able to scale and merge and grow a franchise fast casual pizza chain. Then I think you decided to move back to Boston and launch Locked CFO. So talk about that a little bit because it was around the time that I'd started Funk Futures, and just post COVID, I feel like the whole fractional game was going crazy.
So that's really a significant statement because at the beginning of the pandemic, I think you probably talked me into putting Fractional on my LinkedIn. And so I'd moved back to Boston. I got this really amazing job with Easy Cater, which is the world's leading business restaurant. Oh, sorry, world's largest restaurant marketplace for business catering. Sorry, that was a
Yep.
mouthful. And I got this amazing job. They were growing like crazy, and the world stopped. And Easy Cater's revenue went from millions of dollars a month to zero, basically because nobody was going to the office, and they were a marketplace for providing business lunches. So got laid off like so many people, and uh, was at a point where hated actually working for companies that were really large. And
Mm,
we had a discussion about this at a Red Sox game, and I'm pretty
yes.
sure this is where we decided to go for Give because uh, you were already doing Funk Futures, and I was like, I need to start my own thing. And I think I don't know what exactly how, but you're like, brand yourself as a fractional CFO. And I had been a CFO for Persona and Forenza Pizza and had a corporate finance and analytical background. And I put fractional CFO on my LinkedIn headline, and I started getting inbound leads. I think
Of
we were
course.
early to using that term.
A little bit.
I haven't gotten one of those leads like that in in a while.
Because there's a
Uh,
million fractional CFOs now.
yeah, there's so much fractional. That word is really. I mean, it just means part time basically, but it sounds
Yeah.
fancy. You know, you charge more like a lawyer. That's for an hourly rate or retainer. But got to work with a number of startups, early stage companies, companies looking to pivot their models in e-commerce,
Yeah.
SaaS, uh, online services,
Yeah.
sales, marketing, recruiting, and health and exercise, cannabis. So I've got a pretty diversified background, so it was easy for me to kind of adapt to these different industries. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that there's only so many business models, right? There's transactional, there's subscription, there's services, and there's software, right?
Yep.
There's really not that much else, and the basics are the same. There's acquisition and retention, customer experience. So I was providing my clients a little bit more than what a CFO does. I had also been in charge of Persona and Foren's mobile app, online ordering, third party integrations, and I had learned a
Hmm.
lot about developing apps and managing products. And working with all the companies as a fractional CFO combined with doing being becoming an entrepreneur in the pizza business has prevented us from making some mistakes with Give because we already made the mistakes.
We've seen it. Yeah. No, and also varied skill sets, I think, is important to have, which, being a generalist, especially with like where my company is at this point, Funk Futures, having generalists on the sales side is really important. And that was one of the things I enjoyed about working with you is, yeah, you were the fractional CFO. I'd also call you the fractional COO. And probably like the head of marketing too. So, I mean, there's other things that you
You
can
also
do and
called
bring
me
to
the
the table.
CEO of the ROC. Oh.
I also called you the hand of the king, which was timely at that point.
That
That
was
made me feel really good about myself. All right, so just a couple more minutes here, and I want to put you on the hot seat, rapid fire some questions. So
oh
I'll just
shit.
throw it out there. One, yeah, it's on. What is your favorite pizza place in the world?
Oh wow. In the world.
If you could only have pizza
So
for your last meal, you're going to the electric
okay,
chair.
I
Where
know what
is
the
it?
answer is, and it's closed. It was a place in
Oh,
Saugus, Massachusetts, on Route One called Angela's Coal Fired, and they have the wings there were a bomb too, but they closed like last year. But I think it took me a long time. Every time I travel, I try more pizza and try to
sure.
find that top spot. Um, there was a place I went to in Miami recently, actually downtown, that was really good. Uh, my cousin actually visited when I first moved here, and he was like, "We need to go back there on the way to the airport." I don't know why I can't think of the name right now,
Oh,
but
it's like that. It's like that. There's
downtown.
also some recency in place there. I mean, you might have said
Yeah,
Bianchi's a few years ago. Um, and
Yankees has gone downhill.
I hate to hear that.
Yeah, well, it's like hit or miss. I'd say it's hit or miss.
Yeah. For me, I think it's Tony's in San Francisco.
Oh, Tony's in San Francisco. Yeah, that's actually definitely high
That
up there.
that place is amazing. Amazing. But anyways, it was your question, not mine. Two, you're living in Miami right now. If we look down the road, say 5 years from now, are you still living in Miami? You're going to be back up in Boston. You're going to move to Texas, California. You've been all over the place. Where do you think you're going to be in 5 years?
I'm either going to be here living closer to the beach or in Mexico or somewhere in South America.
Yeah, I buy. Well, you're fluent in Spanish, so I buy that too. And now, finally, as it comes to give, right? What does give look like in a year, 3 years, 5 years? You Are you trying to scale this and grow this to be one of the most philanthropic companies ever created? Is this a company that gets acquired, goes public? Like, what are your grandiose visions for Give, and where is it down the road?
So our vision collectively is philanthropy in every business meeting. So much like rounding up at CVS, every time there's a meeting, there could be a donation that happens. And we're going to market now in the last month or so with multiple products because our product is flexible and we can target different users. But where I see us 12 months from today is that we have thousands of users using our free product, which is just a scheduling page that demonstrates support for nonprofits. So you can just personalize it. And instead of using your boring old Calendly page, you're using a Give link. And we're going to start by giving it away for free to nonprofit employees. There's 1.6 million nonprofits. There's millions of nonprofit employees. And there's millions of them that are using Calendly and other scheduling tools. So we're going to give the product away for free to as many people as possible so that we can build a brand that truly connects people and inspires people.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun to play this out. Final question. Where can people find you? Social media sites that you're frequently on, websites, things like that.
Oh, well, give.co. So it's give.co.
Check the hats.
And
Mm.
yeah, these are the hats. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. My name is very common. There's probably 500 people named Dan Locke in the United States. So you might want to search for me on LinkedIn with Brandeis, or just see that I'm a connection with Jeremy, probably the easiest. And on Instagram, my handle is Locke Legends. I'd like to think I'd become a legend someday, but you
You
know,
already are to some of
at
us,
the
my
beginning
man.
when I said who I wish I was a comedian. That's what I wish.
I don't think
Uh,
that that's like, I feel like the barrier for entry for that type of gig is much lower because you could just start putting your comedy out there online. Seems like you got too many other things going on right
no,
now. So that's
yeah,
fun.
maybe I'm just not that
Um,
funny.
I do. Nice. Anyways, I love you, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, this
Love
is
you too,
everything you
brother.
dreamed your first podcast would be. And I have a feeling now you're what happens is when people come on a podcast, other people say, "Oh, I've got a podcast. I want to have this guy on." So watch, you're going to start getting invited on more podcasts, especially as
Really?
Give grows. Oh, no question, no question. Yeah.
Nice.
So you'll be on the circuit here soon. But I appreciate you, Give.co, for everybody listening. Locked CFO, Dan Locke, my man. Thank you for coming on What the Funk.